The young and the restless spoilers. Victoria's breath came in short, shallow gasps as her eyes blinked open to the suffocating dimness of the bunker, the air thick with the metallic scent of concrete, cold machinery, and betrayal. Her limbs were stiff, wrists sore from the ropes that dug into her skin, but it was the weight in her chest, heavier than the restraints, that consumed her. The murky outline of Cole stood before her, flanked by Claire, both cloaked in the same sterile silence that had haunted her since her capture. The chair beneath her creaked as she instinctively tried to move, but her body refused to obey, partly from exhaustion, mostly from fear. She had hoped it was a nightmare, a cruel fabrication of her subconscious built from suspicion and fragments of paranoia. But no. It was real. Too real. Every detail? From the flicker of the surveillance monitors in the corner to the still wet ink on the blueprints spread across the nearby table, screamed truth. And the truth was this: she had stumbled into something much bigger than herself, something dark and calculated, and now she was caught in its jaws. Cole stepped forward, eyes tired but resolute, and without fanfare, he confessed the one thing Victoria hadn't dared to fully accept. "I am Dumas," he said. The words didn't echo, but they rang through her like a scream. That name, the elusive figure behind whispers of sabotage, surveillance, and blackmail, was not a stranger, not a phantom, but the man she once loved. Her mind reeled as he continued, speaking in a voice that was eerily calm. "I never wanted this," he said. "Not with you. Not like this. But I've been wronged, Victoria. Used. Discarded. Humiliated. By people you still protect, Victor above all. I gave everything. I lost everything. This is the only way I can make it right." His gaze flickered to Claire, who stood stiffly, her expression unreadable, her loyalty to Cole unwavering yet tinged with something softer, something restrained. Victoria wanted to scream, to spit, to curse them both, but what escaped her lips instead was a choked sob. "I loved you," she whispered, voice cracking. "I was loyal. I trusted you. I trusted Claire. I never once doubted either of you. And this is what I get?" Her eyes welled with tears that refused to fall, suspended in a state of disbelief. "Why?" The question wasn't screamed but whispered, and that quiet hurt more than rage ever could. "Why would you betray someone who stood by you when no one else did?" The room remained silent, save for the slow hum of the power generator in the background, until Cole knelt before her and spoke with a heaviness that seemed to crush the air between them. "I never betrayed you," he said. "I never stopped loving you, Victoria. Not for a second. I would never hurt you, not truly. But I needed to get close. I needed access. You were my way in." The words tore through her like knives. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," he continued. "But once things started, once Victor became involved again, once the pieces started to fall into place. I couldn't stop. I used you, yes. But I did it to hurt the people who hurt me. Not you. Never you." Victoria let the tears fall freely now, each one searing like acid as it traced the contours of her face. "You don't see it," she whispered. "But you have hurt me. More than anyone else ever could." She turned her head, unable to meet his gaze, unable to bear the shattered reflection of a love she thought unbreakable. Claire finally spoke, her voice soft and uncertain. "You weren't supposed to find this," she said. "We tried to keep you safe. We thought if you didn't know. If you stayed in Genoa City, it would pass you by. But you followed us. You didn't listen." Her voice trembled, but she quickly composed herself. "We can't let you leave now. Not yet. You know too much." The implication was clear, and Victoria felt her blood turn cold. "So what?" she snapped. "You're just going to keep me here until your little war is over? Until it's convenient to let me go? How do I know you won't kill me the second I become a liability?" Cole rose slowly, exhaling through his nose. Because I gave you my word. When this is over, you'll be free. I don't want you hurt. I never did. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, her name scribbled on the corner. I even wrote the release protocol myself. There's an escape plan in place. For you. Just in case. His words were meant to reassure, but they only deepened her despair. If he had planned an escape plan, that meant he had always anticipated this moment. Always intended to deceive her. Always expected her to become collateral. I don't believe you, she said, voice sharp now. Not anymore. You say you love me, but you tied me up. You say you want peace, but you're building war in a bunker beneath a city full of innocents. You say I'll be safe, but you've already stolen my freedom. Do you even hear yourself anymore? Cole said nothing, but his eyes flickered. Just briefly, with guilt. Claire, however, remained unyielding. You were never supposed to be part of this, she repeated. But now that you are, we have no choice. If we let you go, everything collapses. Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper again. You've already collapsed, both of you. You just don't see it yet. Silence fell again, this time heavier. The tension in the room was suffocating, thick with things unspoken, wounds unhealed. Victoria could feel something shift then. Not in them, but in herself. The last shreds of hope she had clung to, the idea that Cole might still be the man she once loved, that Claire might still see her as family, were gone. What stood before her were shells of people, consumed by vengeance, manipulated by past scars, driven by an obsession to right perceived wrongs through twisted means. And now she had to survive them. Because she knew, deep in her bones, that this wouldn't end with her release. Cole might believe he could control the variables, but Victoria had seen enough to understand how quickly control could slip away. Whatever was coming, whatever Dumas had planned, it would explode. The names on the documents, the data on the drives, the surveillance photos, it wasn't just revenge against Victor. It was annihilation of legacies. A scorched earth campaign designed to cripple the power structure of Genoa City and everything it stood for. And she couldn't stop it, not yet. But she would remember. She would wait. She would endure. Because if there was one thing Victoria had learned from being a Newman, it was this: the most dangerous person in the room wasn't the one with power. It was the one with nothing left to lose. Would you like me to continue with Victoria plotting her escape or developing a psychological turn where Claire begins to unravel under guilt? Cole stood in the bunker's control center, surrounded by a half-circle of monitors that glowed with shifting images, faces of power, whispers of intent, blueprints of chaos. The room buzzed quietly with static and digital hums, but beneath that quiet pulse was the roar building inside him, a frustration that refused to be soothed. Everything had been laid out perfectly. Every step in his plan had been calculated with cold precision, from Kane's manipulation of social networks within Genoa City to Claire's re-entrance into the elite circles Victor trusted. And yet, the machinery of his vengeance was starting to grind. Kane, once reliable, had begun to falter, not in loyalty, but in execution. The party at the estate was meant to be a controlled stage, a carefully curated gathering where Claire would float among guests, extracting information, sowing discord, quietly shifting the balance of power. Instead, the atmosphere had turned stale. The excitement had drained. Guests murmured about leaving early, boarding flights back to their fortified mansions and safe boardrooms. The energy was vanishing, and with it, Cole's grip. He clenched his jaw as he watched Kane on screen, pacing the hallway of the estate, phone pressed tightly to his ear, trying to suppress panic while masking it as command. Cole's voice cut through the calm line like a blade. Fix it. There was no elaboration, no empathy. Do what needs to be done. We keep them here, or we lose everything. Kane winced but obeyed. He had no choice. Cole wasn't just his employer. He was the architect of a new order, and Kane had already bought too deeply into it to turn back. So he returned to the ballroom, composed and charming on the outside, while chaos simmered beneath his skin. He made calls. He issued new offers, private jet rides, access to exclusive chancellor portfolios, whisperings of multi-million-dollar consulting deals. He promised luxury, influence, the illusion of power. He raised the stakes, hoping greed would anchor them longer than curiosity ever could. Meanwhile, Claire glided through the party like a ghost in silk, her beauty disarming, her smile mechanical. She drifted from conversation to conversation, ears open for names, whispers, anything. But her focus narrowed on two targets, Holden and Kyle. Both were close enough to Victor to be dangerous, both held keys to parts of the puzzle Cole needed cracked open. Kyle was cautious, still wounded by Summer's betrayal, his guard often wrapped in sarcasm. Holden, newer to the web of Genoa City's elite, was more curious, more malleable. Claire approached them under the guise of small talk, laughter, flirtation, subtle probing. She asked about Victor's latest business interests, his supposed plans to restructure the Newman board. She inquired about Chance and whether he might return to law enforcement, about Phyllis's sudden absence, about Nikki's strange silence on the rumors of Victor's illness. Every question was a thread. Every reaction was a clue. But it wasn't going smoothly. Holden grew suspicious, his eyes narrowing just slightly every time Claire lingered too long on one subject. Kyle, already navigating his own demons, seemed torn between being intrigued and annoyed. The mask Claire wore was beginning to slip, not visibly, not yet, but the strain was there. She could feel it under her skin. The lies were stacking, the pressure mounting. She hated this part. The manipulation. The charade. But she had chosen this. Or maybe it had chosen her, the moment she followed Cole down the dark path of Dumas and left behind whatever fractured innocence remained. Back in the bunker, Cole watched it all unfold with increasing rage. The plan was fraying. The party should have yielded leverage, names, confessions, alliances cracked and redrawn in the shadows. Instead, it was unraveling into tedious conversation, polite exits, and waning interest. He slammed a file shut, sending papers skittering across the floor. I gave Kane one job, he muttered, pacing in a tight circle. Keep them there. Keep the energy alive. Create tension, not boredom. But the truth he refused to admit, not even to himself, was that people could only be manipulated so far before their instincts kicked in. And right now, instinct was telling the guests to leave. That something was wrong. That danger hung in the air, subtle but sour. Victor, meanwhile, had disappeared from the ballroom hours ago. While others drank wine and whispered about stocks and social coups, he moved silently through the estate's west wing, down corridors marked private, into the depths of the basement archive. He had received a tip, a name, a time, a trail, and now he was following it. Files had gone missing. Communications had been rerouted. Surveillance systems had glitched in ways too convenient to be accidental. Someone was moving beneath his radar, and it wasn't just business. It was personal. He scanned the documents spread before him, his eyes narrowing at patterns. Dumas. The name had surfaced again. But this time, not as a ghost. As a threat. Real. Tactical. And connected to too many things that should have stayed buried. He found a USB drive wedged beneath a file cabinet, labeled innocuously as Architectural Plans, Marseille. But Victor knew the scent of misdirection. He inserted it into his private laptop and watched as files loaded, schematics of the estate, thermal scans of the bunker beneath Nice, lists of personnel and supply shipments labeled with Chancellor accounting codes. His pulse didn't quicken. It slowed. Because that's when he knew. This wasn't paranoia. This was war. And someone had brought it to his doorstep, wrapped in nostalgia and betrayal. He didn't speak a word as he exited the room, didn't alert security, didn't even call Nikki. Not yet. Instead, he returned to the party, face calm, expression unreadable. He approached Holden first, asking what Claire had been discussing. Then he watched her from across the room, studying every move, every glance. She had no idea he was onto her. Not yet. And that was his advantage. Victor was no stranger to enemies. But what made this different, what made it dangerous, was that the enemy wasn't on the outside. He was in the walls. And his name was Cole. Would you like me to continue with Victor confronting Claire or slowly exposing Kane? Or shift focus to Amanda, Phyllis, and the tension brewing in Genoa City?